So one of the things I do for work a lot is voiceovers, and I have done hundreds or thousands of hours of them by now. Recently, I had to do a project where, in a very short amount of time, we had to do a large amount of voiceover very quickly. We ended up using a commercial service that cost us a few $100s to do it, but that inspired me to go and look for free options. And this is where I came across Microsoft VibeVoice. It's a service that allows you to produce on your own GPU a pretty high quality voice recording. So I'm going to give you a sample of one. This is War of the Worlds, read by VibeVoice from Microsoft.
No one would have believed in the last years of the 19th century that this world was being watched keenly and closely by intelligences greater than man's, and yet as mortal as his own. That as men busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite complacency, men went to and fro over this globe about their little affairs, serene in their assurance of their empire over matter. It is possible that the infusoria under the microscope do the same. No one gave a thought to the older worlds of space as sources of human danger, or thought of them only to dismiss the idea of life upon them as impossible or improbable. It is curious to recall some of the mental habits of those departed days. At most, terrestrial men fancied there might be other men upon Mars, perhaps inferior to themselves and ready to welcome a missionary enterprise. Yet across the gulf of space, minds that are to our minds as ours are to those of the beasts that perish. Intellects vast and cool and unsympathetic regarded this earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. And early in the 20th century came the Great Disillusionment.
Now, this was performed using their half-billion model. They also have a 1.5 and a 7 billion parameter model as well. My GPU, at least the only Nvidia one I have access to, is only a 3050. It's laptop, and it's only got 4 gigabytes of RAM. Despite this, it was able to render that very nearly real time. So if you've got a 3060 or a 40 series card, you will probably be laughing with this model and getting very near real-time results, if not exceeding that. Now initially I had a bit of a problem trying to run these instructions myself, so I ended up forking the whole archive over to Form & Learning, VibeVoice, and I have some updated instructions you can run there. Rather than using their method, I swapped over to a Conda system, and all the instructions you need to operate it are here. But if you're not confident with Conda, I'm going to take you through the whole process and show you how you can generate your own voiceovers quickly and easily on your own Nvidia hardware. Now you're going to need a couple of pieces of software for this. The first thing, of course, is Git. And the second piece of software is Anaconda. It makes my life much easier when I'm trying to work with various different Python libraries and modules, etc., etc. It allows me to install independent versions of Python with different version numbers that have different things set up to work properly. So before I send you down a wild goose chase, we want to type in this command, NVIDIA-SMI. This will give you the information about your NVIDIA GPU. If you've got CUDA version in the 12.4 and above, maybe 13 won't work, but something in the 12 series should, then you're okay. And this lets you know if you've got a CUDA. Now, bear in mind the software will work fine, but you will be using CPU instead, and CPU is a considerably slower thing than using your GPU. So if you do have an Nvidia GPU, make sure you install the right CUDA version. For this, I will be using 12.4, which 12.7 and 12.8 should work fine with. After that, we need to clone our repository. So just git clone, then type in the address of the git. So the next thing you do is you type in git clone and then the location of the git. In this case, it's going to be Form and Learning, VibeVoice.git, and it will download. So next we have to change directory to VibeVoice, and then we run the command conda env create -f environment.yml, and this then proceeds to go through the setup script that would install the version of Python you need along with all the supporting Python modules. Now this will take about 10 minutes or so if you want to go off and get yourself a cup of tea, you can. As you can see, mine is currently going through the process, and through the magic of movie editing, I will skip it. So once we've installed everything, it gives you the next instruction on the screen. We need to activate the environment. Now, word of warning, use command prompt, do not use PowerShell. The reason being, command prompt will allow you to enter into the environment, and then it will treat the local version of Python as the one you've just set up with everything else. PowerShell is a little bit more difficult. So we type in conda activate VibeVoice, and that will enter into the environment for us. And we'll know it's in the environment because it will have VibeVoice in brackets and before everything else. So the next thing you'll need to do is go into the VibeVoice folder. You'll need to find this file and rename it to .env. Just like so. Yes, I really want to change the file name. Thank you, Windows, for telling me what I shouldn't do. Then for this, you need to open up the env file. I just use Notepad and enter your key. You can get the key from the Hugging Face website, and what this basically allows you to do is automatically download the model without having to go through a lot of hoopla. You just go to settings in your profile, and then you go to authentication, and you create yourself an access token down here. And once we have that saved, we just go into the demo folder. Like so. And that's it. You've basically done everything you need to do to set up the software. Now it's just a case of running it. So you just type in Python VibeVoice _realtime _demo, and we see if it works. And it will identify if you're using CUDA and tell you if it's defaulted back to CPU for whatever reason. If it has, then you probably are not using CUDA 12.4. You might have an earlier or a later version. Now, I've already downloaded this model in the past, so most of you will have to wait maybe 20 minutes or so for about 2.5 gig to download. Once that's happened, it will launch Unicorn, and you can simply access the software through your browser. So here I am just typing in localhost 3000, and we'll end up with our VibeVoice Realtime TTS demo. One of the ways of finding out as to whether or not it loaded to your GPU is to simply go into Task Manager, click on your Nvidia GPU, and see how much memory is used. I'm using the 500 million model, so it's using just 2.2. You then just grab some of your favourite text. I tend to default to War of the Worlds. Copy it over and go back into your website, paste it in the text area, and then you just scroll down and you hit the Start button, though you do have a number of voices to select from. For example, Davis. We're going to click Start here. Now, mine, of course, is not quite real time, so you're going to hear a delay in the audio and it's not going to run very fast. That's because I'm using a 3050 GPU. Yours is much faster probably, and it will work better. But you can hear it attempting to stream in real time.
By this surface must have begun its course.
And once it's finished streaming, you simply click on the Save button, it downloads, and you play it.
The planet Mars, I scarcely need remind the reader, revolves about the Sun at a mean distance of 140,000 lieues in miles, and the light and heat it receives from the sun is barely half of that received by this world.
As you can see, it's done a pretty reasonable job on a very weak GPU. So, there you go. You can now create your own pretty convincing voiceovers, and if you've got a more powerful GPU with more memory than I have, then you can also increase it to use a larger model from the series. But this is a basic introduction to VibeVoice on hardware that most people will have some kind of access to. Now, on a side note, I would like to point out some of the dangers of software like this in our modern society. For me, I create educational software, and honestly, I create so much content these days that voicing it all over myself can be rather tiresome, so having a good TTS is really good. And of course, for people with blindness and other disabilities or even people who just like to listen to audio but can't find their favourite book on tape, this kind of technology is a godsend. But this is a real-time technology in pretty convincing voices that only really technically savvy people will be able to identify as some kind of AI voice. This should really alarm you because you never know what's on the end of a phone now. Is it a real human being, or is it a real-time AI chatbot engine that someone's running off an Nvidia GPU? Remember, I could hook this up to something like LM Studio, Whisper, and combine the technology you've just seen to create a system that could effectively listen to a human being, try to convince them of something, and generate an audio response. I have a mate in America who I work with on a regular basis, and he is getting so many robot calls to his father, who unfortunately is elderly, he's in his own home, he's got access to a landline, and they are quickly able to find out if an OAP is in that particular area just by their phone number or if they're in the phone book. So they end up sending these robot callers to try and scam them out of something. This is something that as a society we need to be ever increasingly aware of, especially as we are taking responsibility for our elderly who really have no idea that any of this is even possible. So I invite you to consider the ethics and implications of this technology. It has some fantastic uses on both sides of the spectrum, and I really, really want you to consider how good this technology is getting, and if someone has access to better hardware than I am, how convincing could the voices get to the point where even you can't tell the difference. So educate, let people know, use the technology fairly, I beg of you, and just be aware that the world is very much changing thanks to AI. I hope you've enjoyed this video and learnt something. Please give me a follow and leaving comments anything else you'd like me to investigate. I work with large language models, I work with Flux and various other art packages, and even some video packages like OVI. So give me a like, give me a follow, leave me a comment, and well, help promote my channel so we can get the information out there. And in the meantime, you can have access to my GitHub repository. Have a great day.